If you're a fan of one of 30 teams not represented in this year's Super Bowl 55, then like myself, you're probably struggling to find reason to watch the big game aside from potential monetary incentive or because you simply can't wait to see what Doritos has come up with for this year's interruption of your scheduled program. In the past, I've chosen my team based on superficial values, but I've never really had a particularly good reason to jump on the old bandwagon for a day. Until now. My name's Quick Pick Nick, and using historical franchise data, analytics from fan bases across the country, and undisputable, objectively founded evidence, I've come up with a definitive measurement of which team deserves your support using math, social sciences, and psychology. This measurement takes into account 5 unique variables, returning a value that will indicate where you belong on the one-of-a-kind, never-seen-before Fandometer. Landing a perfect 5 will put you in Chiefs Kingdom, whereas if you score a -5, it's time to break out that old pirate's hat from your elementary Halloween costume. Let's quickly run through the not-so-secret formula. The first variable is your team's rivalry factor. If you support a team from either the AFC West or NFC South, then 3 points are automatically added to the other side of the equation, since hating teams within your division is what NFL fans are taught from a young age. If there is some other outstanding rivalry independent of division or a particular player your team would want to succeed, then 2 points are added accordingly. And if there is no relation between your team and one of the championship contenders, then your team earns 1 point towards the representative from the opposite conference, because come on, I've got to put points on the board somehow. The second factor is your team's 2020 record against the finalists. It always feels better to have lost to the champion, so your team will receive 1 point towards either team that beat you in the regular season, or 2 points for a postseason defeat. Additionally, knowing that you could have beat the champion yourselves would only add to the regret and sorrow. So if your team managed to beat one of these finalists during the regular season, you'll receive 1.5 points towards the opposite team. Since I've already accounted for divisional impact, I'll score each AFC West and NFC South team at half weight. The third member of this equation is your physical proximity. These teams are representing your half of the country to an extent, and unlike the maze of cities and states that comprise the AFC and NFC, this measurement will actually make sense geographically. If your team plays to the west of Kansas City, you will get 1 point towards the Chiefs, and if your team plays to the east of Tampa Bay, you get 1 point towards the Buccaneers. Landing in no man's land will net you nothing. The last 2 categories will go towards a final multiplier, meaning they will either amplify or reduce your overall score and commitment to your new team for a day. The first of these factors is your team's volume level and how loud fans can get at home games. Overall loudness is a good way to measure a fan base's dedication to their cause, which should naturally carry here. Using Bleacher Report's rankings of who's the loudest, your team will receive up to 1.25 points if you could make the ground shake, or as low as 0.75 points if you'd be better suited to a library, because loud means good. For the final input of this masterfully crafted formula, you will be penalized for your faithfulness and rewarded for your infidelity. The opposite of a loyalty program, if your fan base is dedicated to your team already, you probably won't find yourself sporting anyone else's colors. Using a study on how much it would cost to convince 500 fans to sell out and be the Brutus to their Caesar and stab their own team in the back to support their rival, teams can be ranked by loyalty, and depending on the gravity of a fan base's dedication, I've added or subtracted up to 1 point to the final multiplier. And there you have the secret formula, the Lombardi equation, the Super Bowl postulate. All that's left to do now is plug them in and see how they stack up on the patent-pending Fandometer, bringing you today's fair weather with a chance of treachery. And if you find yourself with a newfound fanhood thanks to my mathematically sound calculations, you can thank me by subscribing and sticking around for more absolutism in the world of sports. Starting at the bottom with the lowest ranking and most boring, these 3 teams are SOL if they clicked on this video seeking a reprieve from their otherwise depressing season. The Lions, Vikings, and Eagles all scored 0 on the Fandometer, meaning there really isn't much to say about their relations to the current contenders. All 3 of these teams scored a measly 1 in the rivalry category, only to be cancelled out by another point due to losing to the opposite team or living on the other side of the country. So, unsurprisingly to see, and something fans of these teams are probably used to at this point, Detroit, Minnesota, and Philadelphia are once again disappointments. The next 3 teams start to move the needle by a bit, but not by much, with the Rams scoring just over half a point towards the Chiefs and the Bengals and Jaguars falling on opposite sides of the spectrum with our first whole numbers. The Rams story is actually quite interesting, as they scored a -2 in the rivalry category because they used to share a state with the Chiefs, and there's certainly some bad blood left over in that relationship, but their deuce was quickly cancelled out by their regular season victory against the Buccaneers, bringing them 1.5 points in the opposite direction. The Bengals and Jaguars, on the other hand, are, as expected, quite boring. Raising the bar to 2 points, there there were a number of teams who fell within this range, starting with the Jets and Texans scoring 1.25 points towards the Buccaneers and Chiefs, respectively. The Giants placed at negative 1.5 for the Buccaneers, followed by the Ravens not far behind at negative 1.75, with the Bills and Browns both exact opposites to Baltimore, scoring a positive 1.75 for the Chiefs. The 49ers also happened upon our first two-pointer. The Bills would have found themselves much higher on this list, considering they fell to the Chiefs not only in the regular season, but also in the conference championship. But thanks to their position on the east side of Tampa Bay, as well as their AFC status, Buffalo's overall score was limited. For the next lot, the Colts and Titans both landed at negative 2.25 in support of the Buccaneers, with Denver just a quarter of a point down the line at negative 2.5. Both the Cardinals and Panthers split the difference at exactly 2.5 in favor of Kansas City, while the Chargers fell a bit further to negative 2.625 on the Buccaneers side. The Chargers had potential to score huge points here, considering they managed 3.5 points even before the multiplier was included. Yet their small but dedicated fan base prevented anything massive from happening, since they scored low in the volume category and even lower in the loyalty category. As Chargers fans were actually the most expensive to convince of switching teams, but the most surprising part of that statistic to me was the fact that they were actually able to find 500 Chargers fans for the study. Tennessee has quite the opposite story, as although they only scored a single point before multiplication thanks to their obnoxiousness and most willingness to switch teams on a dime, serving as the least loyal team in the NFL with the lowest selling out price, Titans fans more than doubled their score in the multiplication factor alone. At this point, we've narrowed down the list from 30 to 11, and now we're really starting to separate the bandwagoners from the homers, the boys from the men, the fans who care more about winning than their own shame and self-worth. So it's probably befitting to start the section with the Patriots, basically an entire subsection of America comprised entirely of bandwagon fans, scoring a negative 3 alongside Pittsburgh and the rest of those TikTokers up in what used to be a Rust Belt city, but has become the epicenter for immature hypebeasts and largemouth influencer athletes. At 3.5 points, we have another couple of teams, with both the Dolphins and Seahawks in support of Kansas City. Miami's in-state rivalry with Tampa Bay played a prominent role in their placement, whereas the Seahawks NFC Conference Western location and ability to literally register as an earthquake helped them climb the ladder. And here we have the final 5, the moment everyone's been waiting for, the best of the best. I'm not exactly sure that you would necessarily want to pass this test with flying colors, seeing that the higher you rank, the more willing you would be to jump ship from your original team, bringing into question your initial dedication, but I digress. Tying for third with a narrow lead from the rest of the top 11 at 4 across the board, the runners-up to the runner-up are the football team, the Cowboys, and the Packers. Maybe surprising to some, these fans are fed up with their organizations and just want to know what it feels like to have some success in the modern era. I mean, on the one hand, you've got a team without a name that made it to the playoffs with a negative record, but predictably got run over by the steam engine that is Tampa Bay. And on the other, you've got what's supposed to be America's team that hasn't made it past the wildcard weekend since 1995, and just disloyal fans from both ends. And while the Packers still have the all but announced MVP under center, the front office has done absolutely nothing to actually get better at football in the past decade, drafting a quarterback instead of a desperately needed skill player in the first round of the 2020 draft immediately following an NFC Championship run in 2019. But that's not even the worst of it. We've still got 2 more teams whose fans will be going to war for one of these Super Bowl participants, thanks to their innate hatred of the other side. For the penultimate team, we've got a fan base who has just completely despised one of these contenders for very long, a rivalry as old as time, and a fan base who might want their Super Bowl team to win more than even native fans of that squad. As our runner-up is the team with a brand new home, but the same old hatred, the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders totaled negative 3.75 points before even the multiplier factor, and after including their relatively massive volume and questionable loyalty, Las Vegas ended up breaking the Fandometer, clocking in at negative 5.625. So, suffice it to say that fans in Las Vegas will be hoping that Mahomes, not unlike the thousands of patrons just feeding their money to casinos in the city that never sleeps, will crash and burn in a blaze of indignity. And that's not even the most dedicated team. No, there's still one more team to go that has more hatred and spite in their hearts than even the Raiders. And if you thought a 5.5 was enough to break the Fandometer, this team wasn't even in the same range, not even close, scoring almost 2.5 points more than any other candidate. For the non-participant team that is most passionate about this Super Bowl 55, the newfound diehard fans of the Kansas City Chiefs, scoring an 8 out of 5 on the Fandometer. Our winner, I guess we're doing a winner now, our winner is the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are the perfect storm for the Fandometer and almost scored even higher if it wasn't for their postseason loss to the Buccaneers. As a member of the NFC South, New Orleans immediately received 3 points towards the Chiefs. The Saints went on to beat the Buccaneers not once but twice in the regular season, adding 3 more points to their total, which was brought down by 2 from that playoff defeat. Even without a proximity bonus, New Orleans started with 4 points before the multiplier, and with one of the best volume levels in the league, as well as some of the most willing fans to sell out to go to another team, or rather rather high 2x multiplier resulted in a cataclysmic score. If the Buccaneers had taken a different path to the Super Bowl without beating the Saints, this score could have been even higher, perhaps setting a double-digit record. But I guess we'll just have to live with the fact that although the Fandometer can be broken, it has its limits. For now, at least. Until next year. Thanks for watching. This video was really fun to make and something I figured I wanted to give a go alongside my other daily fantasy content. I'll still be pumping out more daily fantasy lineups for bigger slates and more important events, but I also want to play my lot at making higher quality videos like this one more often, with more weird and mathematically driven ideas that have nothing to do with math. Either way, you might as well subscribe if you made it this far and want to see what else I've got up my sleeve for the next outside of the box video. And until next time, this has been Quick Picnic, the intersection for sports, data analysis, and speed. Thanks for watching.